from the new chapter, the first paragraph we have already done. So we'll go through each sentence. Okay. It is now possible and necessary. Okay, shall we do that?
Good morning, Rangada. Good morning, everybody.
Kiran,
Yes,
Natya,
Rangada.
Jasmine, Sonki, Seema. I'm reading each sentence and we'll see. Yesterday we have done the summary already, but today we'll just go through each sentence. It is now possible and necessary, since we have formed a sufficiently clear idea of the significance of the evolutionary manifestation in Earth's nature and the final taking or destined to take place. That's interesting. We will discuss that. Okay. To direct a more understanding regard on the principles of the process by which it has arrived at its present level and by which, presumably, with whatever modifications, its final development, its passage from our still dominant mental ignorance to a supramental consciousness and an integral knowledge will be governed and made effective. So in this saying, we have enough idea of what the evolution is going towards. So now we'll look at the process by which it is done. Okay? So it is now possible and necessary because he has to prove that the physical world is capable of being divinized. That's the whole intention, like that. Okay? That a divine transformation of matter here in the physical world is possible. That's the whole intention of the life divine. So that's why the word necessary for the argument. Since we have formed a sufficiently clear idea of the significance of the evolutionary manifestation in Earth nature. So what is it? What is the significance? The divine has manifested himself in the opposite of himself. And now he has to, the involution is complete. Now there is to be an evolution. And the evolution has to end in what? Realization of God the transcendent, realization of God the cosmic, and realization of God the individual. But what about the universe? In the universe, the next stage of evolution will also take place. The supramental race will come into existence. That's the aim. So now he is saying, and the final turn it is taking or destined to take. Now that's very interesting because what he is taking because he was undergoing the transformation himself. So it's present tense. Final turn is taking, it is taking. Okay? So, and also in mother, he was taking the final turn. It didn't complete itself, but it is taken or destined to take place. So he was saying it may not be in this life, but it may be in the next one, in the next coming years. It may come, destined to take place. To direct a more understanding regard on the principles of the process. How is it being done? By which it is arrived at its present level. And so what is the present level? The spiritual consciousness. Okay. And its final development, arrived at its present level, and by which, presumably, with whatever modifications, its final development. Now, simply using the word presumably, because many people ask him, can you describe this supramental manifestation when it comes here? What will be its nature? What will we see in the physical world? But Srebner says that the possibilities are so many that it is not possible to see all of them. So presumably, he is using the word. There will be modifications in this final development. So exactly what the form will be is very difficult to say. And 25 years after Srebner passing away, not 25, 23 years, mother continued to work and she saw that the supramental race is not going to come immediately, but the intermediate rays will come, which is called the Surron in French. And some people have translated that Surron as the overman. But it won't be the Superman. So there will be something in between the two. So the overman, you can say in a certain sense, a yogi more perfect than the average yogi. A yogi, but a more perfect yogi than the average yogi. Very interesting way of putting it. So that would be overman, not Surron. That's why Swami is saying, presumably, its passage from our still dominant mental ignorance to a supramental consciousness and an integral knowledge. The consciousness will be supramental and the knowledge will be integral and will be governed and made effective. Will be governed and made effective. For we find that cosmic nature is constant in its general law of action, since that depends on the truth of things, which is invariable in principle, although in detail of application abundantly variable. Now that's interesting sentence. We know that the higher planes of consciousness, the higher hemisphere is immutable. There are no changes there. It is static. Okay? And in the physical world, there is movement all the time. In fact, there is eternal movement in the physical world and there is eternal static condition in the spiritual worlds. So that's what he's saying. How will that happen? It's passage from our still dominant mental ignorance. He's saying dominant because in some men the mental ignorance is not there. For instance, in Sri Aurobindo and Mother and many yogis, certainly the mental ignorance is not there. So a supramental consciousness and an integral knowledge will be governed and made effective. For we find that cosmic nature is constant in the general law of action, since that depends on the truth of things, which is invariable in principle. Invariable in principle, immutable, no change, static condition. Okay. Although in detail of application, abundantly variable. When it comes down and gets applied in the physical world, it is variable, and the variation is infinite. That's the reason why we can't say what form it will take. At the outset, we can easily see that since this is an evolution, out of a material inconscience into spiritual consciousness, an evolutionary step building of spirit on a base of matter, there must be in the process a development of a triple character, an evolution of forms of matter, more and more subtly and intricately organized, so as to admit the action of a growing and a more and more complex and subtly capable organization of consciousness is the indispensable physical foundation. So, he's very clearly saying that the evolution is basically of consciousness, but it must also be an evolution of material forms, life forms, because yesterday we discussed that a material form, material life form can embody in its own, in itself a consciousness which is proportionate to its own physical condition. So, what I'm going to say is, naturally a mentality cannot be there in a worm, nor can the inventiveness of man be there in a cat. He can't create a mobile. So there is a limitation. So if you want a supramental being, the biological form must also grow into something which will be capable of housing the divine consciousness. That is what he is saying. Okay? In other words, there is two evolutions parallelly going together. One is the biological forms and the other is the consciousness, forms of consciousness. Okay? You can see, we were discussing this yesterday, some scientists think that biological evolution, there is no goal. But if you see very carefully, you will see that yes, there are forms which are less evolved and there are forms which are more evolved, obviously. There are creatures with one sense, there are creatures with two senses, creatures with three senses, four senses, five senses. We know, for instance, that some creatures below don't have ears, and some creatures don't have eyes. The fish in the deepest part of the ocean don't have eyes. They don't need because there's darkness there. Okay? Then in some, the snakes, they don't hear. They have no ears. They test the atmosphere through their tongue. So that's what we mean. The more evolved the biological form, the more possibilities for a higher consciousness to enter into it. That's basically what we say. An evolution of forms of matter, more and more subtly and intricately organized, so as to admit the action of a growing, a more and more complex and subtle, capable organization of consciousness, is an indispensable physical foundation. An upward evolutionary progress of the consciousness itself from emerging curve that on this foundation the evolution was described is using the word emerging curve. It may not be linear because it's a curve. Because it can go into many directions. No? So it cannot be a linear growth. It has to be a zigzag growth because when you're starting from inconscience, you don't know which road to take. So nature is going on experimenting and making forms, rejecting, making again other forms and saying this is good and going on. That's the reason why many species are dying out. We know that the dinosaur has died out, we know that the mammoth has died out. Nature has experimented and found that it's not so useful for the next evolution. So it lets it die out. A taking up, now there is an next one. A taking up of what has already been evolved into each higher grade as it is reached, and a transformation more or less complete so as to admit of a total change working of the whole being and nature. An integration must also be part of the process if the evolution is to be effective. So Sandhya has spoken about this triple. So there's first of all, the evolution has to throw up biological forms capable of housing higher consciousness, number one. Then the consciousness also itself has to go up. Then there has to be, the consciousness has to enter into the biological form and go up. I'm saying biological form, but later on it may not be biological form. But it will be a material living form, no doubt. So that's what we say. It's a triple process. Now we can read the next one. The end of this triple process. So who will read? Kiran, you have the text? You have not read for a long time.
Yes, Rangada. Shall I read?
You have the text with you?
Yes, yes. Yes, Rangada.
Okay. She seems doubtful. Oh. I'm sorry.
Shall I?
My loudspeaker is going off by itself sometimes. That's why now you can hear me, no?
Yes, Rangada.
Kiran, you can read?
Yes,
We
Rangada.
can hear you, Rangada. Kiran, you read.
Okay,
Read.
okay.
Read. Start reading.
Oh, again it is gone off.
Shall I start?
Please do, Kiran. He has the text.
Okay,
only.
okay. So the end of this triple process must be a radical change of the action of the ignorance into an action of knowledge, of our basis of inconscience into a basis of complete consciousness, a completeness which exists at present only in what is to us the superconscious. Each ascent will bring with it a partial change and modification of the old nature taken up and subjected to a new fundamental principle. The inconscious will be turned into a partial consciousness, and ignorance seeking for more and more knowledge and mastery. But at some point, there must be an ascent which substitutes the principle of knowledge, of fundamental true consciousness, the consciousness of the spirit, for the inconscience and ignorance. And evolution in the inconscience is the beginning, and evolution in the ignorance is the middle. But the aim is the liberation of the spirit into its true consciousness and an evolution in the knowledge. This is actually what we find to be the law and method of the process, which has hitherto been followed and by all signs is likely to be followed in her future working by evolutionary nature. A first evolutionary foundation in which originates all that has to evolve, an emergence and action of the involved powers in or upon that foundation in an ascending series, and a culminating emergence of the highest power of all as the agent of a supreme manifestation are the necessary stages of the journey of evolutionary nature.
Yeah. Okay. My loudspeaker is giving trouble, so I'll have to, I'm holding it. Okay. I'll have to get it prepared. Let me see if it stays. Now it is staying. So, I'll do one thing. I'll read the summary of what he's saying, and then we'll go back to it. The summary helps because we know what he's talking about. So, the end of this evolutionary ascent must be the complete transformation of ignorance into knowledge, of inconscience into total consciousness, of incapacity into omnipotence. Each step of the ascent is a grade nearer to the spiritual transformation. That's what he said. The beginning is the evolution from inconscience. The middle is the evolution in ignorance. That's our condition now. Okay, we are in the middle. The final is a liberation of spirit into a total consciousness and knowledge, which will happen. The process that we see in the lower hemisphere of body, life, mind, of already evolved state, must also continue into the future, since the law of growth in nature is the same consistent process. This is what we are saying in the Bible. Okay. Now we can go back to each one. The end of this triple process must be a radical change of the action of the ignorance into an action of knowledge. So what is the triple process? First of all, there has to be the biological form development. Then the consciousness also must develop. And the two must merge. And the third will be the transformation of body, life, mind into a more divine condition. There cannot be an absolute divine condition. There has to be a more divine condition. So,
excuse me, you
yes.
said first biological form.
Yeah.
Then what was the second?
The consciousness also must rise, no?
So one is biological form. Then second is consciousness has to enter into that biological form.
That's
and
right.
What is the third?
No, the third is the result. The result of that.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the result.
Okay, thank you.
The base of complete consciousness, a completeness which exists at present only in what is to us the superconscious. So, what Sendhu is saying is the perfect divine condition is there already available at the higher levels. And that's what the Mayavadin and the Buddhists are saying. That you can't get perfection in the physical world, you can get it only at the higher level. So Sendhu is saying, no, slowly that perfection of the divine will be available here also, but it's a slow process. Okay? So that which is available there at the highest level will one day be available here at the physical level also. That's what he's saying. Okay. A completeness which exists at present only in what is towards the superconscious. Each ascent will bring with it a partial change and modification of the old nature, taken up and subjected to a new fundamental principle. So, what is this new fundamental principle? From matter is coming out life, from life is coming out mind, from mind is coming out the spiritual consciousness, the higher mind, and from the higher mind it can go to the human mind. These are all the steps. Partially it is getting transformed. From the human mind to the intuitive mind, from the intuitive mind to the overmind, finally into the supermind. Okay? These are the steps. So each ascent will bring with it a partial change and modification of the old nature, taken up and subjected to a new fundamental principle. The inconscience will be turned into a partial consciousness and ignorance seeking for more and more knowledge and mastery. But at some point, there must be an ascent which substitutes the principle of knowledge of a fundamental true consciousness, the consciousness of the spirit, for the inconscience and ignorance. The divine consciousness will be available to the individual certainly, but also it will be available to the general mass, just like the mental consciousness is now available to all mankind, not to the animal. Exactly in the same way, the spiritual consciousness will be available to a large section of humanity, but not to everybody else. An evolution in the inconscience is the beginning, an evolution in the ignorance is the middle. That is our condition now. There is ignorance and there is evolution going on. But the end is the liberation of the spirit into its true consciousness, into the higher hemisphere, and an evolution in the knowledge. Now, third is evolution in the knowledge. That's what Swami is saying. Evolution does not stop. Even after supramentalization, the evolution will continue, but it will be from knowledge to knowledge, not from ignorance to knowledge. He says that in the Laddu and elsewhere also. Okay? An evolution in the inconscience is the beginning, an evolution in the ignorance is the middle, but the end is the liberation of the spirit into its true consciousness and an evolution in the knowledge, not an evolution in the ignorance. This is actually what we find to be the law and method of the process which has hitherto been followed and by all signs is likely to be followed in a future working by evolutionary nature. What nature has done up till now, it is likely to continue that process. And what is that process?
Dada,
Yes, tell me.
this an evolution in the knowledge. This process will be continued after the spiritual transformation, Dada.
That's right. After the supramentalization.
After the suprament, that means after the third stage.
Huh?
After the third stage, that means after the second stage, that after the second stage spiritual transformation, or after the supramental transformation.
After the supramental transformation, it will be a
Evolution of knowledge.
Yeah, it will be an evolution from knowledge to further knowledge. Ignorance will not be there. Partly, it is there in the spiritual consciousness also. Okay, partly. But as Srindu says, even the spiritual consciousness is not full. It's not the full divine. The full divine is only at the supramental level. Okay. So definitely, evolution of from knowledge to further knowledge is after the supermind. Okay. A further involutionary foundation in which originates all that has evolved, an emergence and action of the involved powers in or upon that foundation in an ascending series, and a culminating emergence of the highest power of all as the agent of a supreme manifestation are the necessary stages of the journey of evolution in nature. Clear? The last sentence is clear? A first evolutionary foundation in which originates all that has to evolve. So that is already done in the past. Matter, life, mind. An emergence and action of the involved powers in or upon that foundation in an ascending series. And finally, a culminating emergence of the highest power of all as the agent of a supreme manifestation are the necessary stages of the journey of evolution in nature. The triple process that he has spoken about can also be understood in this way, that first of all, there is an evolution from inconscience. Second, there is an evolution from ignorance to knowledge. And third, there is an evolution from knowledge to further knowledge. That also is a triple process. It can be seen in so many different ways. Now we can go to the next third paragraph, an evolutionary process. So who will read? One of you has to read. Kiran has read. Shilpa, you want to read? Shilpa may not be there.
Yes, Rangada.
Okay, you are there. Go ahead. Read. An evolutionary process.
Yes. Wait a minute. Shall I read?
Yeah.
An evolutionary process must be, by the very terms of the problem to be solved, a development in some first established basic principle of being or substance, of something that basic principle holds involved in itself, or else admits from outside itself and modifies by the admission, for it must necessarily modify by its own law of nature all that enters into it and is not already part of its own nature. This must be so even if it is a creative evolution in the sense of manifesting always new powers of existence that are not native to the first foundation, but introduced into it, accepted into an original substance. If, on the contrary, there is already there in evolution present in the first foundation, but not yet manifested or not yet organized, the new principle or power of existence that has to be evolved, then when it appears, it will still have to accept modification by the nature and law of the basic substance, but also it will modify that substance by its own power, its own law of nature, if further it is aided by a descent of its own principle, already established in its own full force above the field of evolution and pressing down into that field to possess it. Then the new power may even establish itself as a dominant element and considerably and radically change the consciousness and action of the world in which it emerges or into which it enters. But its force to modify or change or to revolutionize the law and working of the original substance chosen as the evolutionary matrix will depend upon its own essential potency. It is not likely that it will be able to bring about an entire transformation if it is not itself the original principle of existence. If it is only derivative and instrumental power and not the first puissance.
It's a very interesting para what he's saying. He's saying that in inconscience there is an involution. And the involution we know is, at least that's what we think now, that there is such Shakti Ananda. These are all involved in the inconscience. But he's saying later on in the evolution, there could be elements which are not there originally in the inconscience. That's exactly what he's saying. That's interesting because man, now we are thinking in terms of human consciousness, but human consciousness cannot foresee everything that is going to come. Just like when you go to the self, Later on, it will discover that you can go beyond the self. So exactly in the same way, probably new powers which are not there in the inconscious may also manifest. That's what he's saying essentially. So I'll do one thing again. Because it's quite a big para. I'll read the summary and then we'll see each sentence. Now, what exactly is evolution and how does it work? These are questions which I have put so that we understand what he's saying. As I told you, he says something without telling you what he's trying to prove. So you have to read the para and then you have to put a question which says, this is what he's answering. So this is exactly what, that's why I put a question. What exactly is evolution and how does it work? An original substance evolves in possible ways. An original substance, the inconscious, evolves in many different ways. That's what we do. First, powers other than the original substance are already involved in it, and when given the right conditions, they emerge one by one, like the seed and the tree. Okay? The tree is already involved in the seed, and that can come out one by one. The hidden superior power emerges and changes the original substance, but it also gets influenced and limited by the lesser original substance. So the new one that comes up is interacting. I'll be more specific. Okay? When life comes out of matter, matter is holding back the full development of life, but also life is influencing the matter. There is a double action, upward and downward. The upward action is matter is going up, life is taking it up, but matter is pulling it down. That's what he said. Okay? Limited by the lesser original substance. The power to transform the lower is not complete if the higher is not the highest. That's exactly what we saw, that when you enter into spiritual consciousness, it is not enough to change the body-mind life. It can change the mind to a certain extent, it can change the vital also, but certainly not the body. Okay? So that's what Sandeep pointed. The power to transform the lower is not complete if the higher is not the highest. The second way evolution could effectuate itself is the original substance has no other power inherent in it, but an outside power enters into and changes it. Okay? Here too, the second substance will alter the original, but the extent to which change occurs depends upon the intensity, the quality of the second. And if it is not the highest creative power, then the transformative force is limited and itself gets affected by the lower primary substance. Just now, as you said, the lower is affecting the higher, and the higher also is affecting the lower. Okay? This is a constant thing. So, in spiritual plane of consciousness, obviously, the lower, the level 1 is pulling it down. Okay? Thus, when life enters into matter, dead matter becomes living matter. But life itself gets limited by the power of death in matter. So, did you follow what is saying? When life enters into matter, dead matter becomes living matter. That is to say, life is affecting matter. But matter also being dead affects life. So life itself gets limited by the power of death in matter. Similarly, when mind enters into living matter, its own infinite mental power of knowledge gets restricted by the gravitational downward pull of the lower and becomes ignorance rather than knowledge. If this is so, then the powers of life and mind are not the highest creative force. So there must be an even higher, more potent force above life and mind, and that has yet to manifest in matter, and its appearance here must necessarily be inevitable in the future. And what is that power? The supermind. He is developing the theme But sometimes he repeats himself, and here he's saying the same thing he is repeating. Spiritual consciousness is not enough to change the body mind life. So supramental consciousness must come to change it. That is what is in the plan. Okay? So, we have 4 minutes left. So, I'm not sure if we will to finish it. So, if there are any questions, we can take the questions. And if there are no questions, then we can stop.
Dada,
Yeah.
you explained a term that some theron like this, a yogi, that in between Superman and the yogi, some word you have explained. Can you tell me the spelling of that word? What is that word? I have never found that.
I don't know what word you are referring to. What did I say?
One is
I said
French word. It means intermediate race.
Oh.
I think she wants that.
Yeah. Exactly. What is that word that you have already explained in last time also? I have watched one YouTube video. At that time also you have explained that word.
Oh.
What is that intermediate stage? That word.
Okay. The overman. In French, it is a surhomme.
Spelling that.
Yeah.
Spelling.
S-U-R. S for sugar. U for university. Okay. R for Ranganath. And H for honey. Okay. O for overrod or over. Then the M, mother, and finally E. That's a surhomme in French. And you are translating that into overman. That's the word. Now I understand what you're saying. Okay, you understood?
Thank you, Dada. Thank you. This overman is above the yogi. Above the yogi, Dada. This
Yes.
overman.
Yes.
This overman consciousness is over the yogic consciousness.
Even more than that, yes. That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Dada.
Because yogi already
Would he be in the overmind plane?
probably. Yeah, that's it. It can't be in the supramental plane, and it cannot be at the spiritual level. So definitely it will be in the overmind level. That's right.
That means it's in the level of God.
God is there everywhere, yes. I don't know what you mean by God.
Gods, like God of wind, and that's a very difficult word to answer. But like Krishna is there in the overmind plane, Jesus will be there in the overmind plane.
Okay.
Buddha will be there in the overmind plane.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they've reached overmind or not.
Who?
The gods are not evolutionary, so they are already there.
That's right. That's right. Whereas
Yeah. No,
Just yesterday
but
I was
now will the new race be evolutionary and will be born directly in that plane?
that will be the supramental race, but not the overman.
No, supramental race will be born in a supramental way.
That's right.
But here the evolutionary or the intermediate race is not going to be born in the supramental way. It will be born in the same mechanical way which it is being born now.
Yes.
But the person who is born will be an evolved soul with an evolved consciousness, so that he could be already in from that plane, like somewhere over my plane.
Yes. I think what you're saying is more.
Rangada,
Yeah. Tell me.
Rangada, can you give the reference where, so that, mother's writing, is it in the agenda?
Yes. Mother has spoken about the overman in the agenda.
Can
Album.
you tell the volume? Can you tell, Rangada?
Pardon?
The volume.
Oh, that.
I want in the reference. The reference, it will be, self-reading often helps twice, thrice, 4 times we can read now.
No, so you're reading the book or you're reading on the computer. Then you can make a search.
I have the book also in my room and a computer. I usually use the book, Rangada. I
So
prefer using books.
if you have the book, you can't. But if you have the computer, then you can make a search and you'll see over. Sure.
Okay,
On.
I'll do that. That I can do. That I can do. You're wrong. Okay, I'll do it. Rangada.
Okay. All right. Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Dada.
Merci
Au revoir.
beaucoup.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.